My knuckles turned white as I sat in that frigid courtroom, my hands interlocked so tightly that I could hardly move, desperately trying to keep the mess inside me from pouring out. The outfit I wore wasn't anything extravagant, just something. Clean and straightforward, I grabbed from the rear of the closet. Though simple, it served as a shield against the stares that seemed to pierce me from all sides as I moved around the room. Camille sat with an air of effortless elegance, her poised demeanor exuding self-confidence as she clicked her luxury shoes with each movement, like she was posing for a magazine cover. Her lawyer, Lawrence Bellamy, loomed near her, all sharp edges and harsher phrases prepared to rip me to shreds the second he got the chance. The divorce trial had languished for months, each day grinding me down even more. As we waited for the judge to lower the gavel and pronounce my doom, I could sense Camille's final shot was coming, one that weighed heavier than anything I'd ever borne. It reverberated in my mind as she leaned in, grinned, and declared audibly, "You never contributed anything. You're just a kid I'm feeding." The room laughed. A fast, vicious wave of sound that made my face burn. I wanted to disappear, melt into the wooden chair and be done with it, but something in me broke instead. I couldn't let it end like this, not when her lies hung in the air like truth. The judge, a severe woman with gray streaks and razor-sharp eyes, raised her gavel. My heart was thumping so loudly I could barely hear myself speak. "Your Honor," I began, my voice rougher than usual, my legs shaking under the table. "Before you rule, there's one thing I must explain." The crowd went still. The judge lowered her gavel slowly. Her eyes narrowed, like she was deciding if I was worth the extra minute. Camille's sneer faltered, just for a second. Bellamy leaned over to whisper something in her ear, probably telling her not to worry, that I was just embarrassing myself. But I wasn't. Not this time. I took a long breath, feeling the air scrape down my throat, and started talking. "For years, I've let people think I'm nothing," I said, locking eyes with the judge, not daring to glance at Camille yet. "I've let her say it, let everyone believe it, but it's not true. I've got proof. Proof of what I've done, what I've built, even if no one ever saw it." I reached into the folder my lawyer, Elise, had dropped onto the table earlier. My fingers quivering, I drew out the first sheet. It was a contract, one I'd signed years ago, under a name Camille wouldn't recognize, linked to a corporation she didn't even know existed. The judge leaned forward. Her glasses caught the light, and I kept speaking. "I've been silent, Your Honor, but I haven't been idle. I've got records, designs, financials, things that prove I wasn't just sitting around while she climbed her ladder. I helped build that ladder." I could feel the shift in the room, the way the air tensed, like everyone was holding their breath. Camille's face changed, her lips parted, her eyes widened, and for the first time in months, she didn't look so sure of herself. Bellamy stopped, muttering, his pen frozen mid-sentence. The judge said nothing, only motioned for me to continue. So I did. I laid it out. How I'd spent years in the background working on things she took credit for. Things she didn't even know I'd touched. I spoke about the designs I'd made, the concepts I'd whispered into her ear, the way I kept her world running while she smiled for the cameras. My voice grew steadier. The words spilled out like water I'd held back too long. I didn't yell, didn't point fingers. I just told the truth, plain and clear, and let it hang in the silence. When I finished, I sat down, my hands still shaking, but lighter, like I'd finally dropped a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying. The judge glanced at me, then turned to Elise. "Counselor, do you have anything to add?" she asked, her tone flat. But intrigued, Elise, calm as ever, replied, "Yes, Your Honor. We have proof to support everything Mr. Rohr just said. We're willing to provide it all." The judge nodded again, slower this time. I could see her mind working behind those sharp eyes. Camille didn't move, didn't speak. She just sat there, pale and rigid, like she'd been hit by something she never saw coming. The courtroom was silent. So quiet, I could hear my own breathing, rough and uneven. I didn't know what the judge would do next. Didn't know if she believed me, or if she'd throw it all out as some desperate last-minute play. But I'd said it. I'd finally said it. And no matter what came next, it was enough for now. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because I was still raw from her last jab. But I told him, I could help you with it. He glanced at me like I'd grown a second head, possibly wondering what Camille's kept pet could do. But he was desperate enough to say yes. That night, I went home and started drawing. Logos, layouts, even a rough pitch for his investors. I gave it to him via a phony email, signed it Roar Designs, and urged him to let me know what he thought. A week later, he phoned me, freaked out in a good way, claimed it was excellent, asked what I'd charge. I gave him a price low enough to discourage questions, and that was it. My first customer. From there, it snowballed. I'd pick up contacts at her galas, guys like Tom who'd get stuck talking to me while she cleaned the room. I'd listen, nod. Then later, I'd reach out, always under the alias, always modest about who I really was. I gave architectural work, storefront designs, office plans, but also branding, logos, even marketing concepts. I'd stay up late after she went to bed, my laptop gleaming in the dark, developing portfolios for people who didn't know my face. It felt like I was taking back a piece of myself she buried. Roar Designs grew, gradually but steadily. Word spread through the startup crowd. Soon I had a handful of clients, then a dozen. I kept it all secret. Bank accounts, separate, emails encrypted, everything locked down so she wouldn't stumble across it. I didn't want her to know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. It was mine. The one thing she couldn't touch or twist into her story. But here's the part she'd never believe. The part that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. I ended up assisting her too, without her ever knowing. Two of my clients, little companies I lifted out of the dirt, grew big enough to grab her eye years later. She chased them down, pitched them hard, and they invested in her brand, pumped money into her company when it was wobbling after a rough quarter. I'd steadied them, built them up, and they turned around and stabilized her. I watched it unfold from the shadows, saw the wire transfers come through her accounts, money I tracked for her, nonetheless, and didn't say a thing. I could have told her, could have tossed it in her face, that her self-made empire stood on my work. But I didn't. I just kept going, kept building Roar Designs, kept my head down. It wasn't about retribution then. It was about survival. I wanted anything to prove I wasn't what she said I was, that I could stand on my own. Some nights I'd sit there staring at my client list, the jobs I'd completed, and feel this quiet pride, like a fire she couldn't put out. I thought back to the early days when she called me her quiet genius, when she adored my ideas. Before she realized they didn't matter. Roar Designs was me, taking that back. Piece by piece. I didn't flaunt it, didn't need to. I knew what I'd done, and that was enough. But eventually, it wasn't just about me anymore. I started spending the money. Little at first, then more as the jobs piled up. I invested dummy businesses, anonymous holdings, some even tied to her globe. When her firm hit rough patches, when she overextended on some spectacular campaign, I'd nudge things along. Quiet cash injections. Deals guided her way through my contacts. I didn't do it for her. I did it for us. for the life we built. Even if she didn't see me in it anymore, she never caught on, never questioned where the luck came from. She just snatched it and ran, beaming for the cameras, while I watched from behind my screen. Sitting, here now, waiting for the judge to rule, I can still feel the weight of that secret. How I held her up, even while she tore me down. Roar Designs wasn't just my getaway. It was my proof, my lifeline, and eventually, it would be the hammer that broke her perfect little lie wide open. I sat in the courtroom, my hands still sweaty from gripping the table too hard, my mind straying to how terrible this divorce had gotten, harsher than I ever dreamed. The trial had evolved into a conflict, and Camille wasn't holding back. She wanted everything: the house, the stocks, the patents she'd filed under her company's name, even the car I'd driven for years. She sat across from me, stone-faced and smug, like she'd already won. Her lawyer, Bellamy, tore into me, called me a freeloader, said, "Mr. Roar hasn't contributed a dime." His voice was silky and arrogant, flipping through pages that made me look like nothing. "He's been a dependent," he said, "living off my client's success, entitled to not 1 cent of her hard-earned fortune." It was cruel, every syllable a hit. I could see the judge listening, her pen scratching notes, her face unreadable. Then Camille piled on, her voice sharp, staring directly at me. "He's never done anything meaningful. Never built anything. Never earned anything. I carried us." My stomach twisted, hot and uncomfortable, like I might throw up right there. Even our friends, people we'd had over for meals, joked with over drinks, started pulling away.